Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Wednesday, November 7th, 2018. Let's take a look at some solar conditions. We got a lot to go over tonight, a few articles as well. Solar wind speeds right now are sitting at a 450.4 kilometers per second. Actually, let's go ahead and refresh that, make sure that's correct. They've increased. So since about an hour before the show, we were sitting at around 437. They jumped up to 450. Then up to now 460.8 kilometers per second with a density of 9.0. Looking at our sun, we have 0 sunspots once again. This is now 20 days in a row with 0 sunspots and 186 days total for 2018. TCI is at 44 billion watts. And looking at the KP indice, we're sitting at a 3 with a 24-hour max of a 3, so no storm conditions. But as you can see, our star has been kind of peppered with a series of coronal holes. And as you see in this particular image, as we see the coronal hole now becoming Earth-facing, now this coronal, this solar wind is due to be here around the 9th of November or the 10th. So somewhere around Friday and Saturday. And I will point out as well that we possibly might break that 20-day streak. It just depends, as the active region is now turning towards Earth facing. Again, we will keep our eyes on this, as it does appear to be an active region, but also this part of the sun is now facing what would be a stronger magnetic connection, since most of the planets, if not all of them, are on the same side of the sun when you think about it in a 180-degree angle, or position I should say. And we'll take a look over here at SPACEWEATHERlive.com, and I'd like to go here now just because of this particular feature that we want to take a look at. This spot that we just passed right there in the 90, in the negative 90. And there's our coronal hole, and there's our potential sunspot right there. There may be a second one behind that just a few days, but it just depends on how this plays out. Will this decay out? But there does appear to be 2 active regions that look like they could possibly form into sunspots. Again, we will keep our eyes on that, as we've had a very long period of time without a sunspot. And take a look at our TSI readings in for October 29th, 2018. We're at a 1360.6644. So again, TSI has been trending out of that 0.7 values and has stayed steady in the 0.6 values for the past several days now. And let's get right into some volcano news. A new eruption at the Planchon Piedra volcano, the first since 2011 in Chile. And it says a small explosion eruption took place at Planchon Piedra volcano in Chile around 1323 UTC time on November 7, 2018. This is the first eruption from this volcano since 2011. The eruption sent volcanic ash up to 14,000 feet above sea level, according to the Buenos Aires VAAC. This is about a 4,265 feet above the crater. Ash drifted east-southeast at Serenagum, adding the technical alert for the volcano to remain at yellow. And it's been there for a little while at yellow. So 2 out of 4, just a little bit of concern, nothing immediate danger or anything like that. The volcanic complex is on a yellow alert since July 10th of 2017, after elevated seismicity recorded since around July 8th. So it has not moved. It's not going up or down at this point. The last notable eruption took place between February 17th and June 26th in 2011, which we mentioned 3 times now. VEI 3 was the scale of that eruption. And this is just one of a couple that has actually gotten started up. And actually, Guatemalan volcano Fuego, once again, is now eruptive. And this is the 4th eruptive phase that we've had this year in 2018. This happened on November 6th, 2018. The volcano experienced weak to moderate explosions, with ash plumes rising up to 15,700 feet above sea level. traveling about 9 miles to the west and southwest. Weak sounds similar to a train locomotives were heard every 8 to 14 minutes. The ashfall was reported in the several provinces, which I will not attempt to pronounce, as these are, I'm not familiar with this region as far as pronunciation. I'll leave the link in the description. You guys can look it up. But they're saying at the moment seismicity has decreased. However, the possibility that new lava flows are generated in the different ravines, as well as events with pyroclastic flows, is not ruled out. So another volcano has become awake, and so we have Central America, which has been kind of busy anyway. Now this volcano in Guatemala, I got a good friend of mine who has been telling me to watch this region. He's been right. And you know, now throw in the volcano in Chile. Now not quite the same as Central America, but he's been right a lot when it comes to these volcanoes in Central America. And once again, the fuego is firing up for the 4th time in 2018. Deadly floods hits Indonesia. More than 1,400 homes are flooded. I saw some footage of this storm on Facebook, severe-weather.eu on Facebook. And it was on a guy's cell phone. A couple cars raced across the road before the flash floods finally took over the busy city road, except one car tried to see if he could beat the flash flood. And guys, it wasn't that it was a massive tsunami wave, but just enough rushing water at a certain height is enough to take a 1,500 to 2,500 pound car and move it right along down the line. Now it says here, at least 4 people have been killed over the past 4 days in Indonesian provinces of West Sumatra and West Java after heavy rain caused severe flooding and landslides. First flood reports started coming in on November 2nd from areas around Padang, West Sumatra, where rivers broke their banks and floods inundated about 1,400 homes in the districts of Pau, Lubuk, Kiligan, Lubuk, Belong, and Koto Tang. At least 3 homes have been completely destroyed, as well as 2 bridges. Mario is making a comment in the background. I read this article at least 3 times, so I had a little practice. I knew you'd be proud of me on that one. Yeah, good job. Again, more sudden rain. I know we talked about this. Kuwait is another area right now that is being absolutely pummeled with rain and flood right now. Flooding hit West Java provinces, districts of Sipitu, November 5th and 6th. The Pesagraning River has overflowed, roads have been blocked, and bridges damaged, leaving some communities cut off. Another article where we're talking about areas being cut off out here. Another 2 people died in the province. Around 50 families were affected. Let's see if we can get this video to play without getting in too much trouble. Boy, talk about videos getting you in trouble. I'll get into that here in just a little bit. Just one video of many and footage from this area and these floods today as well. I'll leave a link in the description. And over here in Australia, Melbourne floods, more rain in 2 hours than September and October combined in Australia. A slow-moving storm system dumped heavy rain over parts of southeastern Australia on November 6, 2018, causing power outages, traffic chaos. The city's northwestern suburbs suffered the worst of the storm. Thousands of homes and businesses were left without power in the city of Melbourne today, after a very slow-moving storm dumped half of the city's November rainfall in just 3 hours. In fact, in just 2 hours, 11 local time today, the storm dumped around 1.4 inches of rain. This is more than the city has seen in September and November combined. I think they meant September and October combined. Victoria Southeast South received 400 calls for assistance, mostly due to flood-related incidents. The service said it rescued 14 people trapped in floodwaters. Here's a little bit of footage here in Melbourne. Again, folks, do not attempt to drive in this kind of water. These folks thankfully appear to have gotten through this without any issue, but if this was rushing water, the car would not stand a chance. Looking ahead, taking a look at the weather.
We have already recorded 2/3 of our monthly...
Just a little video report. I just want to take a look at the radar here, see what we got coming in the next coming days, as the rain just looks like it continues to fall over and over and over again. Wow. So no wonder they got 2 months worth of rain in 3 hours. That's intense. This is the second storm that we've talked about from Australia this last month. Well, actually in the last 3 weeks. We had a freakish storm hitting the region not too long ago. Large hail, heavy flooding, lots of lightning, and now we have an area of Australia getting about 2 months worth of rain in just 2 hours. Now, that 2 months is not a whole lot of rain, but still quite extraordinary if you ask me. Taking a look at this one here. So here's where we're going to slow things down a little bit. And this is the beginning of the part of the program where I'd like to offer some commentary. And I'm not going to get too political here. Last night, as you all know, the Republicans lost control of the House, but regained seats in the Senate, actually gained a few. But the bigger headline for me, thank God, is this is huge for a lot of us here in America. A lot of voters did not vote in any kind of green energy plans for fighting global warming. It says here, voters in Arizona, Colorado, and Washington rejected global warming related ballot measures. Nevada voters approved a campaign to raise their green energy mandate, which was backed by a billionaire Democrat. And there was no green wave this election. Environmentalists are already blaming the oil industry. Of course, when we first got into doing this channel, we were accused of being paid off by big oil. I wish. Not only did a Democratic blue wave fail to materialize on Tuesday night, the green wave of major global warming and energy-related ballot measures largely failed to get voter approval as well. Voters in Arizona, Colorado, and Washington rejected measures aimed at fighting global warming, despite 2 of those states being in Democratic hands. The Green New Deal in Washington state went down in flames, with the voters overwhelmingly rejecting a state ballot measure to tax carbon dioxide emissions, despite of the Democratic support from its governor as well. Washingtonians voted against the carbon tax initiative 56 to 43%, according to state election officials. The voters have spoken, Tom Pyle had claimed, and this is huge. He's right. The voters have spoken. Everybody's tired of being taxed. Obviously, gasoline taxes are high. Now they want more money for the carbon taxes. Here it says in Arizona, nearly 70% of the voters rejected the ballot measure, with only 30% supporting it. And they're talking about how Arizona voters rejected a liberal billionaire Tom Steyer's campaign to increase Arizona's green energy mandate from 15% by 2025 to 50% by 2030. Steyer's campaign group, Next Gen Climate Action, spent about $23 million backing the ballot measure. Utility groups, including owner of the state's largest utility, spent nearly $31 million opposing this effort. Nearly 70% of the voters rejected this. So, in other words, here we go. Environmentalists also voters saw overwhelmingly reject a measure that would have effectively banned new hydraulic fracturing operations in most of the state. Voters rejected that measure by 57 to 43%. So these weren't little narrow victories. Another victory here, 59% to 41%. These were clear-cut decisions. And that is, and the biggest thing about this, Proposition 112, here, and I think this is Colorado. Yes, Colorado would have hurt more than just natural gas and oil industry, as 77% of the 43,000 jobs it would have eliminated in year 1 would have come from outside the energy sector. This is according to Colorado Petroleum Executive Director Tracy Bentley in a statement. So, not only are the American voters smart for voting down these carbon taxes, but this should be an example, and I wanted to highlight this tonight to all the voters out there who you just saved lots of jobs by voting down these green policies, because these green policies are job killers. And I know, I want clean air too. I'm not saying man can irresponsibly continue to put pollutants or particles in the atmosphere without consequences. I've always spoken that I believe that we do need to continue to burn fossil fuels and others alike responsibly, as we need to think about our health as far as the air quality. But when it comes to climate, these carbon taxes are basically built around the idea that, okay, well, we're charging you so much money because your carbon emissions is causing the planet's global climate to spin out of control. And we've talked about this over and over and over again. Man does contribute, but it's such a small rate, it's not noticeable. And, I wanted to make something clear as well. I'm not a climate denier. I'm a man-made climate change denier. And I think that's a huge difference, because everybody that follows this topic is well aware that the climate is changing. There's no questioning that. That's just a way for the liberals and all the Al Gore supporters to continue to word this situation so it favors their possibilities of continuing to receive grant money. If you have someone who's in office who's not mindful of what's going on and they see the words climate change, well, that makes sense. We got to continue to study climate change because it's affecting us. You hear it all the time. Climate change is affecting us all over the world. So, they go from global warming to climate change because, the last couple of years hasn't been so hot, in my opinion, as far as temperatures. I thought we had a pretty normal summer up here in the Northeast. There were other parts of the country where they had their typical hot summer like they normally do, but it was a late starter, and it was also, when it stopped abruptly. So it's good to see that a lot of voters are not buying into the bull about these carbon taxes. They're saying, all right, enough's enough. And this is where my argument comes when, like people at NOAA, when they tell me that there's not a growing skepticism on AGW. Oh, yeah, there is. Just because you're the only game in town doesn't mean that you can set the rules as well. I think many of us can agree that science will never... The science of everything is still unsettled. We're finding out new stuff all the time on a constant basis. And every time we see something new, it tweaks our forecast, it tweaks the outlook, it gives clarity to the research. And maybe when some of us got involved with this topic, we thought, well, we're in it now, we're in the grand solar minimum. But the more you look at things, the more cycles that you pay attention to, the more you learn about with what's all involved, the easier it is for you to understand why people like Ben Davidson are saying things of the nature of grand solar minimum, not this cycle coming up, but after this cycle. Or maybe I've had other people tell me it's possible that we get a 26 cycle with a weak max. It's weaker than the one that's going to happen now, which some say is going to be half the strength of what 24 was. So if we get half of 24 and then 26 is half of 25, I mean, you're still talking minimum conditions at best. So it's not that these people are saying, we're going to be fine, it's not going to be a problem. I heard one individual refer to Ben as an idiot for making this comment, and that he will be responsible for people when they start dying off, and because they listen to people like him instead of people like, well, whoever this, I'm not going to say the name, but he knows who he is. But this is all about this Valentina Zarkova video. Now, let me tell you something. It's been a busy day here for us at the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Interesting events today unfolded about this video. A channel that basically is taking this paper, this presentation, and almost doing like a Ron Gronkowski touchdown celebration spiking the football. That what he's been saying is actually happening, and he called it and this and that. And I actually heard statements of glaciation within 7 to 10 years. And so I want to bring up this slide. And I'll let Mari do a little more talking at the end as well, because there's a lot of people that comment. Actually, Mari, come here real quick before I get into this. A lot of folks were complaining about the blurriness of the slides in that particular presentation, not just in our video, but in the original version as well. And Mari, my producer, of course, she has direct contact with Zarkova herself. What actually happened today when you talked to her?
Yeah, we had some interesting comments in the chat. I was essentially being accused of altering the actual slides, like hiding information, you know, the conspiracy mind, when that actually is not the case. I did cut the beginning out because I found the guy in the beginning to be rather rude to Valentina.
Oh, threatening.
And it was not necessary for the meat and potatoes of the presentation, which I'll be breaking down slide by slide myself soon. But if you go and look at the actual original video, which I conveniently put a link to in the description, you will see that there is a section that is completely blurred out.
And why is that?
And, well, I asked Valentina herself. I said, gee, Valentina, I absolutely loved your lecture on the upcoming monogram minimum, and I would like to obtain the slides to discuss them more because some of them were blurry and we want a closer look at them. And she explained that her material is being submitted for peer review this week, and that she does not want the information out, understandably. There's so many things that could go wrong with that kind of data. If it's in the wrong hands, they could, you know, claim the work as being their own or whatever. Who knows? I respect her opinion and her decision. And that slide was blurred out on the original video because of that. There is no conspiracy or weirdness about it. But we have, you know, I told her we're excited to do a follow-up interview with her, and we're going to plan on that sometime in December. So we'll be able to look at that slide once it's peer-reviewed, and other scientists have a chance. This is being responsible in the science world. And another thing I wanted to note with, you know, people upset about Ben versus Valentina or whatever. This is science. It's not written in stone. It changes. These are theories and thoughts that we're trying to dissect and be constructive about. The truth is, no one knows. We are blessed to watch this unfold. And if you hang on to an answer like it's fact, then you might miss out on the big picture. And that's what we really try hard to do here at the Green Solar Minimum, is be objective. Look at all different options. I don't choose Ben or Valentina. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to give you the chance to, you know, explain to people, because you're the one that keeps the contact with Valentina, and you're the one that lined up and that's what she wants to do in December, is talk about these slides. We're going to go into these in depth. So we're really excited about that. Mari's working hard to make things happen here at this channel. And once again, we connected with Valentina. So sometime, hopefully early December, we will have a presentation where we kind of go a little bit more in depth with these slides. But what I wanted to kind of also show everybody here is that look at the timeline that we're talking about, to occur. And if you're asking me what that means, to occur means when this is going to begin. And this is a very wide window, 2020 to 2055. In my opinion, this does not guarantee that we are going to start now. She's not saying it's going to last from 2020 to 2055. She's saying that it's going to occur in 2020 through 20. So we could see the beginning somewhere right there in the middle. She's talking about shortage of vegetation periods that can be led to food shortages in 2028 and 2032. So even though that there is talk out there that cycle 25 is a week maximum, we're still going to see the decline once again from 2025, 2026 and onward as we then approach the grand minimum, which if you think it's bad now, wait till then. The output of the sun is going to be way lower than what it is now. As far as TSI, as far as sunspot activity, there'll be more coronal holes, more geomagnetic storms, more cosmic rays. There's so many other people out there that are also agreeing that 2030, maybe even 2041 is when the grand solar minimum begins. And then there was this term, super grand solar minimum, thrown around in this presentation. And boy, did that get some people hard, let me tell you. And again, from listening to her presentation, and I'll listen to it again because I don't think once is enough. These kind of things you have to kind of go through over and over. But it sure sounded like that she was talking about the worst of the worst of the worst after our children's children have gone and passed away. So I think Valentina is confirming that it's going to be a deep cooling cycle. I think Valentina is also taking in consideration of a new mini ice age as well past the 2050s. I think she is addressing both cooling and possible mini ice age, if not worse. 400 years to 1,000 years. Some are saying 3,600 years. I saw somebody say today it could be 100,000 years. Look, none of us are even going to be a fossil in 100,000 years. So when you hear people saying, buy supplies, get it now before they run out, it's going to get bad. It's going to get bad, 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 bad. You got to do this, you got to do this now, and you got to move, and blah, blah, blah. I've heard it before, guys. The same tone, the same direction. And I don't understand what good that does to get people riled up and in fear when there's so many other people that are saying, yes, we are cooling. Yes, we're heading into a grand minimum. It's not quite there. We do have time to get prepared. We do have time to start thinking about indoor growing. I don't believe that a lot of us are going to be able to outdoor grow, even if some of the weather conditions are favorable. Look at the flooding that we had this year from Florence. Look at areas like what happened to Michael in Panhandle, Florida, and Georgia. I mean, I don't think we're going to see increase of those, but with the cosmic ray influx, and like I said, the correction to the cosmic rays is that it ionizes the particulates that are in the atmosphere, making them more readier to form raindrops or snowflakes. In other words, it's almost like these cosmic rays are like magnets for water vapor, for the particulates. So I do believe that we'll continue to see these big rain bombs and these 3 to 4 inches of rains falling in 5 hours and these huge floods, and that's why I'm saying indoor growing. I think the last couple of years, a lot of people have done a really good job at growing outdoors and trying different things in their garden, but now that we've got the practice down, it's time to really start thinking about more indoor stuff. And you have to mix your food with your stuff like moringa. We've talked about this before, where you need the filler with the foods. You just can't sit there and if we're talking about supplying your own food for yourself, which honestly, guys, I can't see us being in that position within the next 10 years. I could be wrong. I could be dead wrong. But I believe with the information that I've seen, we're going to have a bumpy ride. Things are going to get rough. And we're going to see a lot of crop failure. But I think the maximum, the very brief maximum, the weak one that we will get, somewhere around 23 to 2025, will be just enough of a vacation to kind of hiccup everything and give us a chance to catch our breath before the bigger problems do occur, where we see the continuing acceleration of cooling. And Valentina was very lukewarm about Ice Age when we talked to her last year. She's talking about shortage of vegetation periods can lead to possible food shortages in 2028 through 32. That's 4 years. And if we continue to get rock bottom in solar activity, especially by 2031, what are we going to be growing and where? And that's why I really believe that it's important that along with growing outside and trying new things, we need to start sharpening our skills and growing indoors as well. Hopefully we'll get some Patreon stuff going for you guys and some know-how videos about growing indoors. I know there's several channels out there that show you how to do it, and there's lots of good information out there in YouTube land. We would like to contribute as well to things that are going to be useful during this grand solar minimum and possible super grand solar minimum. But again, it's not worth sitting here calling people names because they don't agree with your agenda. There's people that's disrespected Ben on a program and spoke very poorly of him. And I you know, some people might get the attitude or maybe rub the wrong way from Ben, but that's part of who he is and what he's accomplished. And I think a lot of people can sit there and just kind of stew in envy because he did it already. His conference that he has coming up in February, some very good speakers that are going to be there, very sophisticated and educated people, experts in the topic. So I think there's a lot of work and effort that goes into this, and just because this person doesn't exactly fit what you, I mean, I've heard so much praise about Ben for so long, and it's suspicious observers. It's been a nonstop, and a lot of people give him a lot of credit, and he still should deserve that, even though there's a few of you out there who don't agree with his predictions or what he is trying to say right now. I tend to believe that I'm leaning more with you know, Ben Davidson and, you know, other friends that I have behind the scenes that think that this possibly could be drug out to 2041 before we see the grand solar minimum start. But in the meantime, guys, I'm not saying that we're not going to get cold. I'm not saying that we're not going to continue to see the effects of the minimum. We will. It will continue to decline. But when it does finally hit the bottom, we're going to know it. There won't be any discussion about it anymore. There won't be any arguing about who is right and who predicted what. And I think everybody can agree with this. We all trust the words of Valentina Zarkova. All right? And I think this is something that when she does release this paper and these slides, everybody needs to take a look at this and try to understand what she's trying to say here, and not just cherry pick information to help boost and bolster your stance on the situation. Lots of research to still do, guys. Parker probes in orbit. So I mean, there's so much that's going to happen. And Mari's, you know, hit the nail on the head. We're what a time to be alive. We actually get to witness such amazing science that's getting ready to take place right in front of us. We're gonna learn. We're all going to learn so much here over the next 10 to 15 years, and it might be a hard lesson too. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it, but you know, I think everyone probably should just, you know, relax, take a step back, and just try to absorb the information, and instead of jumping to conclusions and attacking other people's channels and integrity, because that's unnecessary. We're all going after the same thing here, which is you know, trying to figure out what to do and when to do it when the time is right. I think everybody's in agreement. It's time to think about what's going to happen, start planning ahead. But you know, glaciation 7 to 10 years, I don't think so. And even I don't think Valentina thinks that either. I think it's going to happen in maybe in a century or so, if it does happen. You have something, Mari?
I just also wanted to mention, while we're on the topic of Valentina, a few people have requested how to donate money to her research. I asked her that. She said she'd get back to me tomorrow, so we'll be sharing the link to that. I mean, surely she's deserving. You know, you see all the garbage out there, people begging for stuff. You know, if you're gonna donate money in regards to the grand solar minimum, she is a fantastic person
Absolutely.
to do it to. So I will be providing that tomorrow when she gets back to me.
And one more thing, guys, before I move on, because this was the stressful day over this video, this presentation. The original authors of this particular video they weren't too happy with other channels uploading this. I know a friend of ours, Henrik, also displayed this video, and you know, there was an audio issue at some point, I guess, in our video, but that had nothing to do with Mario or myself. That blame it on the YouTube gremlins. There was nothing we could do about that. And you know, I found it interesting that there were a lot of people who kind of acted like they had a hair up their ass about the fact that we were sharing this video. But let me tell you something, folks. When Mari and I, or Mari really, when she saw the actual view counts on this video, she wanted to boost this because she knew what a big deal this presentation was. So her only intentions was to put it on a bigger platform. Now, the original authors of this video were probably talking about 1,300 subs, and we have way more than that. So if anything, we just wanted to make sure this got out. Kind of turned into a big ordeal today as well, and hopefully they have changed their minds about us wanting to share the message. We've turned any ads off, so there's no dispute about what's benefiting to having this video on our channel. What's benefiting is that Valentina Zarkova is confirming what so many of us have been saying, and so many of us are trying to figure out. So, you know, I really think when it comes down to stuff like this, you know, if there's no ads being involved with this, there shouldn't be a problem with sharing a presentation like this, because honestly, the views weren't there. They're there now. It's being shared everywhere, thankfully. But in the beginning, we're talking a few hundred views within the first several hours it was released. Now, at least they're in the 5,000 range of views. So that's encouraging. More people are seeing it. Add in the views that we've given now here on this channel. Already 10,000 people have seen this video between our combined efforts. And that was truly the intention with this, was the combined effort of trying to get the word out. But unfortunately, some people have other motives. And from what I understand, the person that's complaining about this was also the speaker in the beginning of the video. Yeah,
it was the gentleman in the beginning. His name is Ben something. I don't remember what his last name is, but you know, he had a hair up his ass that we put it. I broke the presentation down. Just the video. All I did was zoom in on the slides, because the information on the slides is so important for people to absorb in. And Valentina assembled this presentation and put it together brilliantly, so it had to have been seen. And when I saw the video initially, it only had a few hundred views on it, which was a shame, and the channel was only like 1,200. You know, to me, with this kind of information from an organization like that it's coming from, I don't see what the big deal is, because I did nothing but promote their brand in the beginning all the way through the description. You'll see their social media accounts, their website, everything. Gave them huge props for putting together this thing, and I thought I was helping them, but now we're the damn devil demons, aren't we, G?
Well, and you know, it's DAP2030 commented on the video as well, and he said, "Hey, look, I think this guy's threatening Valentina." And you know, we cut out the intro from the original author because it did sound like he was kind of threatening her. The tone was, the words that were said to Valentina is that where she grew up and came from, people that lived behind the Iron Curtain knew better what to say, or else they disappeared. And so to me, that was condescending. Like, hey, watch what you say about what you got, because you are completely, you know, against the grain with the consensus. And, you know, if your information's convincing enough, God forbid that people actually listen to this and then they change the whole narrative. Basically just threatening her, hey, don't mess with the current narrative. And, you know, I just thought the guy was a jerk, honestly. And that's one thing that I will say that the other channel that was criticizing Ben, that we actually agree upon, was that we both think that this guy is a jerk, the way he treated Valentina. Just his whole attitude and the way he dealt with us today, emailing us over and over again about a video that we're just trying to share a message that needs to be heard. Channel like Henrik, you know what a fanatic of the Grand Solar Minimum he is, and what a help he is in this community, help spread the word. He actually got contacted as well. And there's no benefits, folks. There's no benefit from this financially whatsoever. So I just question the motive when people start, because I know every channel out there on YouTube land has uploaded a video from another channel that's produced it. And, you know, if their channel's bigger, they'll get more views for it. And that helps get the message out. And that's all I basically want to say about this and that. You know, where I stand on this whole situation is that Valentina's right and Ben's right. And I think once we talk to Valentina in December, we'll be able to expose why we are saying that it's right both ways. So anyway, another thing I want to talk about, as you all know, I am very involved with NOAA on Facebook. They can't leave me alone. I will start a conversation with individuals in their thread, and I basically get told that I am spreading disinformation. Well, first of all, I want to introduce you guys to a wonderful researcher out there, David Birch, known as the Starman. I have his link in our description, guys. I want you to all check it out. This is his blog, and he does write a lot of stuff, good information. He does his own work, his own charts. Obviously, this is from Dr. Roy Spencer's charts, but you get the gist. He also takes the time to put the information together himself. I highly recommend you guys stick with this website here. You're going to learn a lot more. He does a lot of work as well on Twitter and posts, but I know he does write to this blog quite a bit. Also, one of my favorite features, if he's not in bed, I can type in "hello, my friend," and he might answer and he might not. But I think it's a neat little feature here that David has. I know Mari today opened up a new Discord chat room. We were going to kind of include it with the Patreon, but we want to build up the community here. And so Mari opened up the Discord chat. I'm sure she'll have the link for that as well for all you to join in, all those listeners who want to get involved with the Grand Solar Minimum conversation, for show ideas, for growing ideas, for prepping ideas, bounce everything off. I just think together, everybody putting their heads together and trying to come up with an answer is the best way to do this. And no one person is going to be always right. Some of you are. I'll admit that firsthand, that some of you are, but it's not usual. But anyway, where I'm going with this as far as David's concerned. So he started talking to me about El Nino and what NOAA actually has wrote to define what an El Nino is. And I kind of went over this the other night, guys, and I zoomed through it. I didn't really comprehend it, I guess. I apologize. But I'll read this, just some of this, just to kind of give you an idea of what's going on. El Nino is a phenomenon in the equatorial Pacific region characterized by a 5 consecutive 3-month running mean of sea surface temperature anomalies in the El Nino 3-4 region that is below the threshold of 0.5 Celsius or negative 0.5 Celsius. Okay? This goes on to talk about, and here's the regions where we will see the El Nino. I'll go ahead and show you a map with a circle. Here we go. Zoom this in a little bit. By the way, it looks like we've cooled down a little bit in this area as well. El Nino 3-4, this top line, all the way back. All the way here. All the way to this 27, okay? El Nino 3-4, that top line. So going back to this NOAA write-up here, historically, scientists have classified the intensity of El Nino based on past SST anomalies exceeding the pre-selected threshold in a certain region. This actually presents the threshold as 28 degrees Celsius or greater. Studies have shown that a necessary condition for development and persistence of deep convection, enhanced cloudiness, and precipitation in the tropics is that a local SST to be 28 degrees Celsius or greater. Once the pattern of deep convection has been altered due to the SST anomalies, the tropical and subtropical circulation adjusts to the new pattern of tropical heating, resulting in anomalous patterns of precipitation and temperatures that extend well beyond the region of the equatorial Pacific. An SST anomaly of 0.5 Celsius above baseline in the El Niño 3-4 region is sufficient to reach this threshold from late March to mid-June. This is important, guys. During the remainder of the year, a larger SST anomaly up to 1.5 in November through January is required in order to reach the threshold to support persistent deep convection in that region. So we've got some problems with that statement. And I want to, again, this is thanks to Starman for pointing this out, that NOAA has set the bar for this threshold. Also, when we talk about super El Niños, we're looking at a value of 2 above baseline, which is above 30 degrees Celsius. Okay, so we know from the month of March through June, we need to be at 28 degrees Celsius average temps. Guys, check this out. Let me go ahead and zoom this in for you a little bit. And you'll have to bear with me on the numbers. Take my word for it. This is NOAA's actual data. This is just put together a little bit easier for us to read. And I'll move this up just a little bit because I know it's not all catching there. All right, so the very bottom row here is the 2018 average temps for each month. The first one is January. The second is February. The third, obviously, is March. April, May, June, July, August, September, October, heading into November. Okay. Actually, 2758 is the October temperature. Now, where I'm going with this, we needed to see temperatures, and that just disappeared on me. We needed to see temperatures in the point, or the 28 degrees Celsius threshold from March to June. We didn't see that. In fact, we were in the 25 range, and I really would like to know what happened to that page. It just disappeared. It's unfortunate. Let me see if I can go to something here. In fact, we can look at the El Niño right now, and it's dropping under the 1 value. We were all the way up. Oh, it's dropped even more since the show started. So we peaked out at 1.5 just in 24 hours ago, and we have now dropped in 24 hours almost 3/4 of a degree Celsius. Wow. So again, these are temperatures that need to be maintained, and once again, we're creeping back towards that running of 0.5. Now, if you guys look at this chart here, we didn't have that consistency of 0.5 until September 27th. And where I'm going with this is that we should have been where we were in September 27th all the way back in March, but we weren't. So a lot of data that doesn't add up here from NOAA. And they're telling us that we're going to be dealing with a weak El Niño. I think they're guessing. I think they're overhyping this. I think they're overdoing it because they know that their grant money depends on what happens to El Niño and warming and whatnots. I'll show you this ice graphic once again. 8.7 millions of square kilometers. And this has grown a value of 0.3 since the last time we did the show. Now look at this, guys. You can see the gap, how it's closing. So we are gaining ice at a very, very, very high rate right now. But before I go into that, one more thing before I leave this. Starman has a write-up. He's got some stuff he's going to show us. He's also brought to my attention that the super El Nino that we had in 15 and 16 also weren't maybe quite a super El Nino after all. We have to be at a +2 to be in a super El Nino, and we never quite broke that threshold of 29.5 degrees Celsius. So again, it's hard to find that honest raw data and without the headlines of NOAA. NOAA has the clout. They can say what they want. They're big. They're government. I get it. But when you write your own definition of what consists of an El Nino, and then we have the information that I just showed you guys that shows how we are looking at temperatures that have not been in the range where we needed to be for El Nino up until just recently, just until September. But Starman will have more on that, and I just wanted to share some of that with you guys, explain a little bit about how the numbers aren't looking quite the way they should, and according to NOAA, El Nino that's currently happening, as they say, is not even fitting their own criteria right now. And at best, we're talking about a weak El Nino, if that. Again, look at the temperature drop. And I showed you this last time. We're seeing some 27s here in the tail end that had 28s and 29s. We had 30s up here. Just curious to see what the trend's going to continue to be for water temps. Because right now, the anomaly is showing that it's below threshold almost across the board. And now this anomaly here, this chart is showing us that it's dropping like a rock. Almost 0.3 of a degree Celsius in just 24 hours. That's crazy. So a lot to be speculative. And by the way, guys, it is worth noting that NOAA tomorrow will release its update on El Nino. How many of you want to bet? Well, I don't know. I say they should drop the forecast percentage to 55 to 60% chance of El Nino forming. I'd be shocked if they try to push it past that. But just looking at the numbers, their own raw data, and it is not convincing of any kind of, sorry about that, folks. I forgot I had to move the screen up a little bit when I was showing those numbers earlier. Thanks, Mari. All right, so moving along from the NOAA stuff, I'll leave the links in the description. We saw the sea surface temperatures. North Atlantic is creeping above baseline. I want to correct myself. I said it's only been above baseline 3 times since April. That was incorrect. We were above baseline 3 times from April to the end of May. And then just here recently, we've been above baseline 3 times. So a total of 6 times, not 3 to 4, since April of 2018. We've been above baseline. I just showed you the plummeting temperatures there. Let's take a look at some sea ice today. Huh? Yeah? Just want to show you guys the truth, that's all. There we go. Looks like we're gaining some ice pretty good here on the westerly side of Greenland, as it looks like we have excess of ice as well. Northern parts of Canada. Take a look at our graph. I already showed you guys how we are still rapidly, sea ice is growing, extent very quickly. And taking a look at our national radar, more rain across the south, guys. We had tornado outbreak from Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi. EF2, I believe, was the strongest one that we had. Showers and thunderstorms moving all the way up through Pennsylvania. Northeast has a day off from the weather for now, as we had a drying day as we needed it. We were soaked 2 days in a row up here in upstate New York. Take a look at our GFS real quick. This is starting on the 9th. Let's actually go back to Thursday right now, or tomorrow. Another storm system coming in with high pressure, cold air. And by the weekend, on Friday the 9th, we will have more rain in the northeast, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and a chance of what could be some first of the year flakes flying here in upstate New York and across parts of central New York as well. I don't think this is going to be an accumulating snow. Temperatures are going to continue to drop through the area this week, but I still don't think the ground's quite frozen yet for any kind of accumulation. Then we see a couple days where the 12th, this is where I thought we were going to start seeing some signs of this storm, and here's where the GFS has this system right now. High pressure is definitely way involved here. It's pushing this storm front all the way further south into Texas, the Gulf of Mexico. Now we move into Tuesday and the 13th. Parts of Ohio that I once thought was going to get this, it looks like that you are just now going to miss that snow line barely. Central Ohio is still light amounts, but nowhere near as much as what I originally thought. But as this storm moves in through Tuesday, that heavy swath is still going to be relevant there in western Pennsylvania and West Virginia and parts of eastern Texas as well. Or eastern Kentucky, not Texas. Jeez. Huge difference there. We got a nice little storm here off the Atlantic coast here. Going into Tuesday, November 13th. Now this is next week. And as we continue to see this thing get even more intense up to the East Coast, New York, Pennsylvania is still in a snow as this thing gets even stronger as it heads toward Maine and towards Nova Scotia. Back into this, the winds should produce lake effect snows in central New York and western New York as well as more cold air spills into the area. High pressure starting to dominate once again, being pushed off into the Atlantic as another low pressure system across the northern plains in the upper Midwest pushes its way through into the next weekend, and just some light snow showers, folks. But look at this, high pressure is dominating the lower 48 going into Tuesday, November 20th. So much has changed from forecast to forecast, but we are seeing more chances for snow in the northeast and the upper northwest as well. So really the biggest change is that the stormiest of the storms, we are still expecting that one between the 12th and the 14th of November. Here it is once again as it gets its act together, gets cranking on the 13th. A big system, and if this thing shifts inland just a little bit more, we could be talking a little bit more snowfall for some areas like western Pennsylvania and northeast Ohio, and possibly upstate New York could possibly see, as we see right here, right on the verge of Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, it could see some accumulation possible because the temperatures are supposed to drop to be cold enough over the next several days. Highs in the upper 30s, lows in the upper 20s. So if this were to start overnight, definitely a chance for some light accumulation snows, but nothing major here, no blizzards or anything like that. But we will start to see some colder air start working in, and I'll just go ahead and show us the temperature outlook here as well while we at it. Yep. So definitely fall is in full effect right now. Typical November weather, keeping that warmest of warm air in the south. There's that cold air from the Arctic trying to spill into the northern U.S. It's successful for most of the part throughout next week. That's where we're going to have that cold air for that snow to arrive by next week into the weekend. We see it try to warm back up into the 30s and 40s, but again, as we go towards the end of this month, you'll see that we got more Arctic air that is trying to filter in from the Arctic through Canada and back into the northern parts of the upper Midwest and the Northeast, as well as staying consistently cold as areas like Montana, Oregon, Washington, 30s and 40 weather for you guys. Higher elevations that's seeing all the snow, but this is what the temperature line is kind of like what I would expect most of this winter to be like if we were in an El Nino for real. Like, this is kind of where the thinking is going to be for the colder temps and the snow conditions, right where the blue and the green are separated. Maybe a little bit further south in some parts. And don't count it out yet for the Northwest either, because they are also expecting their typical wet, cold winters as well. But right now it's starting to shape up. November is a cool one, and we will see just how much colder it gets. But as we go into the end of the month, we do see some Arctic air building up in the north, trying to make its way south into the United States by the 23rd of November. And guys, this is far away, so will there be a chance of some Thanksgiving snow? Possibly. But again, this is way too far out. This low pressure system here on the 23rd is another system that we will keep our eyes on, because if that colder air does make it into the upper Midwest, into the Ohio Valley, this could be another snowmaker as well going into that weekend. All right, that's all I got for you guys tonight. Mari, did you want to say goodbye before we take off for the night?
Yeah, I've spoke a lot tonight, haven't I, Jake? It's always a pleasure chatting with everyone in the chat. There was a lot of sharing ideas about growing, people talking about how they do like Ben, they do like Valentina, they do like both sides. Yep. So, you know, keeping things not toxic, just having an open mind, and
the more options we have,
not criticizing people. We just have to watch and see, prepare, you know, for the worst, hope for the best, all that. A quote from Rob in the chat tonight, which he makes me laugh sometimes. I am not incorrect. That's Rob. That's a Rob quote.
Yeah, that's.
I told him I'm going to print it on T-shirts.
I'm not incorrect.
I am not incorrect.
Give him a. No, he's not. No, he's not. He's been pretty right on. Everything that we've ever talked about, he's been pretty spot on. He's called it from the El Niño situation, a lot of the solar weather. So he is right a lot. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you once again for tuning in. We appreciate your support. Please remember to like and share and hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell just in case if YouTube decides to throw out notifications. It does happen from time to time. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Take care, and we will talk soon.